Welcome back to Tied Down TV, the punk rock opinion show with me, Geoff.
And Danny.
Today we're doing our top 5 Swedish hardcore bands. So, yeah, a little bit about Swedish hardcore. What do you know? Do you know much?
I know that apart from the obvious, which we're going to get into throughout our list.
Of course.
I know it had quite a vibrant straight edge scene in the late 80s, early 90s.
Definitely.
Bands like Step Forward and that.
Yeah. See, for me, when I think of Swedish hardcore, I straight away think of like that 80s and 90s crust D-beat, what they called can punk, which meant boot punk, I think. And they had like a raw punk thing as well, you know. And
I think if you're into crust and DB, it's along with Japan, it's one of the countries to look at, isn't it?
100%. Obviously, they had punk in like 77 in Sweden, I think. There was a couple of bands, KSMB, or one, I think, who were quite a big one. And hardcore started there like around 81, 82 with your Crude SS and, you know, a few of the other obvious ones who we might get into. And like I said, it's a heavy influence from Discharge, Exploited, GBH, a lot of that UK 82 stuff.
Well, just touching on that type of stuff, preparing for this list, when I was going through a lot of 7 inches that I had, I realised I've got a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
a hell of a lot of this stuff.
Swedish stuff that I thought.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my god, there's loads of this stuff, and it's all good as well. None of it. There's not much shit.
It's one of the meccas, especially if you're into D-beat and stuff like that.
One of the meccas of extreme music in general.
Yeah,
you know, black metal,
death metal, all huge there, aren't they?
Yeah, it's just a very vibrant place. It's Scandinavia.
Yeah.
You know, in Scandinavia, they have thrash death metal songs in their charts.
Absolutely. And a lot of the like the DB bands and the crust bands in Sweden and Scandinavia in general, a lot of their members are often also members of like big death metal bands. Yeah, I noticed when I was looking at looking over some of the histories of some of them.
Yeah.
So so we kick off.
Go on.
So I'm going to go first. So I'm going to pick a band who I think I talked about last week. So I'll keep it slightly brief, but I had to pick Disfear because they are one of my favourite D-beat bands, and obviously from Sweden. They formed in I think it was around '89. And they've never really officially split up, but I don't know how active they are, if active at all. They haven't released anything since about 2008. The first 3 albums, or the first 3 releases, the self-titled EP as well, actually, but Brutal Sight of War, Soul Scars, and Everyday Slaughter are for me are fucking absolutely amazing, stand-up, great crust D-beat records. You know, again, heavy influence from, I think, you know, because a few members, especially later on, from death metal bands, so there is definitely like a metal edge to it. They've had a lot of member changes and the sound has shifted, but those early sort of just raw pounding D-beat records, like I listen to them quite a lot. Like I said, one of my favourite bands of that style and that genre. So
well, it's a genre we're into, me and you.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The two of us are quite heavily into it.
100%, yeah.
And I think the reason I'm quite into it is when I first got into hardcore, when I just said then about having a lot of this music, I bought a lot of it in job lots.
Yeah, just
not knowing what was in there when I was a kid, when I was a really young kid.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't till years later that I really appreciated what it was.
Yeah.
And you know, it was probably that stuff more so even maybe than Discharge that made me appreciate it all.
Okay.
Obviously, Discharge is probably the most influential band for D-beat.
Yeah.
And then the crust later.
Yeah.
But I bought a lot of this in job lots, in boxes, and years later listening to it, it was probably that stuff that give me that little way into that type of stuff.
Okay, I mean, it was probably Discharge that got me into it, and then once I found
I probably saw Discharge as more of a traditional hardcore band though back then.
Okay.
Myself.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That was just when you're going through this, and obviously when you saw it and you realise how influential Discharge are, like mind-blowingly influential. I try and explain this to people who like you know, normies, so to speak, and they don't get it. Like they influences like subgenres across the world. So when I found like, you know, D-beat and what they call discore sometimes, like say Disfear was always stood out, one of my favourites. So yeah.
My first choice is Cimex, however they pronounce it. Formed in 1981 and defined Scandinavian hardcore, I think, from there. Especially with that Radar 7-inch, which was like a genre-defining release, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
But it's not just that. Like, obviously, they had a few Victims of a Bomb Raid, but also them albums that came out, you know, Absolute Country of Sweden and Scandinavian Jawbreaker, where it had gone from that a bit and it had gone more towards a Motorhead kind of driven metal sound. But it's funny actually, when you think of them, you talk about Discharge and their influence there, Cimex, like we did a video the other day about punk bands or metal bands, whatever, what you'd recommend the metal. We didn't even think of anti-Cimex, do you know what I mean? No. And their influence is absolutely massive, really. Course. Do you know what I mean? They're so influential. And they're probably, if you put a gun to my head, probably my favourite Swedish band. Awesome. Of this style.
Yeah. I mean, they are amazing. I'm also a huge fan. That's a fucking great band, great choice. And like you say, definitely one of the most influential bands coming out of Sweden, and very, very leaning on metallic at times, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so second one for me, I've gone veer away a little bit from the D beat and the crust, and I've picked Refused. So Refused, most people know them for a certain period of their career, but they started off, obviously, they were a hardcore band, like Danny mentioned at the beginning. They had a straight edge hardcore scene in Sweden, and Refused sort of came out of that. Their original motive, they said, for starters, was they just wanted to play outside of their hometown and release a 7-inch. Obviously, they went on to do a lot more than that. They released the debut album, This Just Might Be the Truth. The demo before that, the self-titled one. They had 3 albums and up until The Shape of Punk to Come, which completely, defined a period in time, influenced so much that came after it, for better or for worse. Some people might argue for worse, because a lot of the stuff influenced by it is maybe not for everyone. But it's a fucking groundbreaking album. It's a classic, and like I say, the stuff before it, they split up just after it in '98, got back together I think in 2012, somewhere around there, and I've just heard recently that they're finishing up again, doing a tour this year, celebrating the Shape of Punk to Come. But I never really listened to much after the Shape of Punk to Come personally, but those early albums and up to that point, I think they're fucking outstanding. They were a great hardcore band and very innovative. Yeah.
My next pick is a band I think that are a little bit undersung, a little bit. I don't think they're obscure to people who know, shall we say that. But I've gone for a band called Ernst and the Edsholm Rebels, abbreviated as ETA, obviously not to be confused with the 1977 British punk band. Formed in 1982 out of Karlstad. Did you buy the Doomsday Troops EP when Mikey got it in?
I did not.
Mate,
you did, I know.
Right,
I've heard it because you told me to get on it, listen to it.
Right,
it's fucking outstanding.
You've missed out there, because I think it was a repress, a very limited repress even then. I think it was hard to get then, and I think even the repress was hard to get. I'd say think UK 82 meets Early Suicidal Tendencies. That EP is incredibly good, and it's just so fast. And I think they've recently kind of got back together, in the last 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
I seen a picture of them, and they all look dead young apart from one member.
But term loosely got back together.
Yeah, but I've got to say now, it was recommended to me by Brian. They were recommended to me by Brian Sale originally, and when older punks recommend you something, it's not always that great, but sometimes they really do find you a gem, and you're like, oh my god, this is as good as what they're saying. Doomsday Troops by Ernst and the Edsholm Rebels is one of them records. Check that out, because it is unbelievably good. Yeah,
you sent it to me as soon as you got it, and you were like, I need to fucking hear this.
Yeah.
I couldn't get a copy of it. I think I did try, but it must have already sold out.
You only got 2 or 3 in.
And I listened to it online. It's fucking outstanding.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so pick number 3. I've gone for Wolfpack. Legendary Swedish D-beat band, formed in 94, 95-ish, I think. Most nowadays, obviously, they're known as Wolf Brigade, and the fun fact, obviously not fun, but the reason they changed their name is because there was a Swedish white power prison gang also called the Wolfpack, so they changed it to Wolf Brigade. But anyway, the Lycanthro punk album is fucking amazing. Regular rotation for me again, especially if I'm feeling the need for some Swedish hardcore. Quite metallic as well. It's like I say, they did 3 albums as Wolfpack and as Wolf Brigade. I don't know why, I've just kind of fell off, not really ever listened to much that they've put out under that name, but as Wolfpack, fucking outstanding. I'd recommend any of them 3 albums, but Lycanthro Punk is mind-blowingly good, I think. A stand-up classic from Swedish hardcore from the 90s.
My next pick is maybe another less well-known band, actually. And I'm not... It's that good. I don't know why it's not maybe mentioned on some of the other big heads that come out of Sweden. I've gone for Genocide SS, and I've brought the record with me because this was one of the... Again, this came in a job lot a long, long time ago when I was a kid. And I like this instantly, and it's been quite influential on me when I think about, this is one of the best examples of dual vocals in crust punk. I actually think they do it better than Extreme Noise Terror.
Oh, interesting.
And that's, that's a big claim.
That's for you, that's a fucking
high
bar. Like.
Yeah, so this act, I was exposed to this very young, and I think the influence on it in my bands with dual vocals, it's always been like a record I've looked at. Now, interesting thing about this, and I bet you didn't know about this, here's a little fact for you. You're a fan of Nasum, aren't you?
Yes.
Right, so, is that how you say it, Nasum?
I would always say Nasum, but...
Nasum, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah.
Right, okay,
yeah,
so, the guitarist and vocalist of this band is, and I hope I've written this down right, Mieszko Talarczyk. He was the guitarist and vocalist of this band. Okay. He died in the 2004 tsunami.
Yeah.
He was also the vocalist of Nasum.
That's right, yeah.
Right? And he died in the tsunami of 2004, instantly putting an end to this band and Nasum.
Yeah, I didn't realise he was in them. Actually.
Yeah, he was in these,
I knew that he died.
Yeah, now this is all I've ever had by them, but I've heard a lot of stuff else that they've done, and it's all amazing. It's all, doesn't really stray far from what they're all about. Genocide SS, Genocide Superstars, it stands for. This is actually a split with Vivisection from Japan.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, Genocide SS, and the EP is called Stormtroopers.
Nice.
There you go.
Excellent. So my next pick, I've gone for Avskum. And they're an anarcho-DB crust band, quite legendary. Again, one of the earliest ones, I think, because I think their demo came out like 82, so obviously following straight influence from that, like UK 82 and the anarcho-punk stuff that was going on. I think they originally split 88, but I think they said they've split because they just couldn't decide on new directions, so they just thought, fuck it, we'll just fold the band. But they got back together in the 90s, and they put out quite a lot of stuff. They're quite known more than legendary for this 7-inch, Crucified by the System. Just again, it's fucking amazing. It's a pure classic. So I quite like some of the 90s stuff. They did a big song, There's No Need to Cry, or for Crying. And it's got like this really kind of gothy guitar that leads in, really like jangly. It's quite cool.
And it's called There's No Need for Crying.
There's no need to cry, or there's no need for crying. Yeah, it's fucking amazing. To be fair, it came out in the 90s. It goes into like a DB crusty fast fucking punk song. But yeah, it starts with like this weird, like, I don't know, maybe Killing Joke-ish or something, like a jangly like guitar. It's really cool. So I don't know much of their current status, to be fair, but I believe they're still together and they're still around. But I'd love to see them live, to be fair, actually. But yeah, if you get hold of that single, to be fair, you can get that quite easily. But they're a fucking great band, yeah. Avskum.
I've gone for a big head next. A big head, Skitsystem, formed in 1994 in Gothenburg. I think it's quite rare that a side project is better than is better than what the members' main project is. But I much prefer Skitsystem to At the Gates.
100%.
Which is obviously... Now, At the Gates, as far as death metal goes, I do like their first two albums. However, their big head album, Slaughter of the Soul, I'm not into that type of stuff at all. Yeah, I'm not into that stuff. I'm not into what that influenced. I think if you're going to talk about melodic death metal, I think Carcass's Heartwork is probably my favourite anyway, for sure. But Skitsystem is obviously originally started as a side project of At the Gates. And yeah, I just think, as that traditional crust goes, it's really, really good.
Oh, one of the best.
Yeah, if you can get hold of Alt-E Skit, which is like a compilation of all their EPs, that's really, I've got it on CD. It's like got all their early releases on it. Really good.
Yeah,
and then
splits,
and then that album they did in 1999 is absolutely amazing.
All three of their albums, I think.
I haven't heard the other two actually.
Oh, they're all great.
Yeah, but I've got the first album, and I've got that released with all their 7 inches on.
I've got all the 3 albums, but I haven't actually got the EP comp.
Yeah,
they're fucking amazing bands.
Yeah, they're brilliant. And I know you wanted to pick Skitsystem. Have you got anything more to say about them? Because I know you're a big fan.
No, you kind of covered it, really. Yeah, but I'm a big fan, and they're still active. They haven't released, again, I think 2006, their Stigmata, which was the last album came out.
Stigmata, yeah.
But no, nothing else to add. Fucking amazing band.
Yeah.
Amazing, one of the best from Sweden, to be fair. Yeah, cool. So last pick for me, I'm going for a big one here, Mob 47. As we mentioned in the intro, I said around 82, these are one of the big bands who started in hardcore in Sweden. I think they were together for about 5 years, 87ish, I think they split. Absolute legendary, again influenced by Discharge and the Exploited, stuff like that. But for my ears as well, I hear like a thrashy kind of influence in there, and maybe some of the American, like Poison Idea, maybe a little bit of that in there, maybe a bit of the DRI kind of fast.
It's bloody good anyway.
It's absolutely amazing. I was just going to say, I've got that 7-inch just to show quickly as well, which is right there, which is just fucking unbelievably good. It's Calm Vap and Attack, I think it's called. Amazing 7-inch again, legendary. These are quite known as well. They had a studio. I think it's just like, I don't know, it was a 4-track, like, but it was called Bowling Alley Studio or Bowling Studion or whatever in Swedish. But yeah, Bowling Alley Studio, and quite a few other bands recorded around Sweden in there, and it'll say on the back like recorded or mixed in Bowling Alley Studio. But they're just a fucking outstanding band, still going. Put out an album last year, I think, which is really fucking good as well. So there you go. Yeah, if you're going to want to get into Swedish hardcore, you don't know, I'd say Mob 47 is a good place to, maybe as one of the two or three bands to start with.
I've picked another band again that are maybe less well known. I'm not just picking more underground ones just to be like a bit edgy. These are albums these are bands who've released records that I think are the best. I've gone for a band called Three Way Come, who I don't really know much about, but that's based on this 7-inch.
That name.
Yeah, it's. I've seen someone call them the best band with the worst ever name. But yeah, this 7-inch Battle of Opinions is absolutely amazing. The playing is really tight. You know, they can play. A lot of this stuff sounds messy a lot of the time, but these guys can play. And this is a brilliant 7-inch. And I think they have released a discography where it's got everything they've ever done on it. And again, much like Genocide Superstars, they haven't strayed from that. They haven't stepped out and been something else. Just really good Swedish crust punk. Three Way Come, that is my last choice. I don't really know much about them, just that they were active from 93 to 97.
I've never heard
There's not... Oh, mate, you'd love it.
Yeah, I'm sure I would.
Honestly, again, sure like I've had it for a very, very, very long time. Yeah.
Fuck me.
Yeah. Like I said, I've got a lot of Swedish stuff. And a lot of it I got in a job lot when I was very young. And I appreciate it a lot more as I got a bit older. And yeah, it's not a great name, but it's a great band. Really good, really undersung. Not much to find. You can't find much out about them online, but yeah. No. Battle of Opinion by Three Way Come is a very good 7-inch. Check that shit out.
Cool.
So, do you have an honourable mention?
I was going to go Discard.
That's a good one because they almost made my list actually.
That 7-inch is fucking brilliant.
I'm going to go the Shitlickers.
Yeah, nice.
So nearly over. Before we go, it's time for this Conned RA. Have you had any cons this week?
I haven't had a con this week, no.
I've had a con. I've been con this week.
Go on.
Anyone who knows me knows I like my blaxploitation films from the 70s.
Yes.
They're quite expensive to get. I got The Hammer, starring Fred Williamson, Blu-ray. I sat down, got down there, ready to watch it the other night. Got relaxed, got my nice glass of pop there. Literally started before the credits even thingied. It froze, and I could hear this going. And I was like, oh, what's going on here? Took it out, tried it on the Blu-ray player downstairs, exact same spot. It cost me 36 quid, conned. Now, we have had the con sent in as well. So, John from Chester ordered the Uniform Choice Demos album. When it arrived, the sleeve seemed flimsy. When he opened it and checked it, there was no record inside, only a lyric sheet. That is a con. That is an absolute con.
Bad con.
So that's con for this week.
Yeah.
If you've got any, send them to our Instagram and we will read them out for you.
So yeah, thanks for watching. We'll, the score. Like, subscribe, ring the bell if you want some notifications. Jump on the Instagram, Facebook, all that. Give us some messages, likes, follows. We appreciate it all and we'll see you next week.